Have you ever wanted to enter a game physically? And does that game turns out to be Clash Royale just so you can crack the archer? I know the type of man you are, and hence the manhwa we have brought for you today. So with your gamer fluids ready to be drank, let's begin our recap. Golden Claw is a virtual reality game where players take on the role of hunters in a world inspired by 19th century London, facing off against monsters in a range of dark and challenging dungeons. Every so often, rare hidden episodes are unlocked exclusive side quests that open doors to previously inaccessible places, like the mysterious Avondale Mansion. The moment it appears, the female protagonist, Esper, can't help but wonder why this particular location has suddenly opened up out of nowhere. The hidden episode, titled The Secret of Avondale Mansion, begins with a boy named Jack, a street-smart gossipmonger who thrives on high society rumors. He's the one spreading strange tales about the mansion stories of curses, disappearances, and eerie lights flickering through the windows at night. But in this game, the rule is simple. The weirder the event, the better the loot. Her curiosity burns brighter than her caution. She muses that if she can uncover the secrets left behind by the long-dead Earl of Avondale, who passed away 12 years ago, she might score some rare gear. And once she does, those top-tier items could help her crush tougher dungeons, slay higher-level monsters, and climb even further up the game's power ladder. The thought alone makes her grin, but she still sighs in mild dread, half joking that she'd better not get stuck with some trash-tier reward after all that grinding. As she approaches the mansion, her avatar's boots crunch against the gravel path. The place is eerily beautiful, every detail rendered with obsessive precision. They really went all out modeling this house, she thinks. Of course, Ella has come prepared. Any decent Magitech engineer's residence would have a security lock at the main door. But since it's been 12 years, she figures the batteries are long dead. Still, a flicker of unease dances through her thoughts. How did the Earl die again? She shrugs it off. It's not really relevant. At least, that's what she tells herself. She half expects to see grotesque animal taxidermy or some creepy old experiment lying around, but surprisingly, everything looks normal. Too normal. Pulling up the digital map she earned from her last manor mission, she decides to head toward the study. If the Earl was a skilled Magitech engineer, then that room should be loaded with useful data, schematics, or hidden clues. Her boots echo softly as she climbs the grand staircase to the 3rd floor. The study, according to the map, should be in the brightest corner of the floor, a room drenched in light, perfect for working on delicate mechanisms. Yet when she reaches it, she can't help but frown. Seems like a waste to use so many wires, she notes, her gamer brain analyzing the excessive setup. She grips the ornate door handle and pushes it open. A blinding white light floods the room. Then a thought hits her like a jolt. Wait, does this setting include someone still living here? In typical hidden episodes, there's always someone lingering, a loyal butler, maybe a mysterious servant, but this feels different. The chandelier above gleams too brightly for a place that's supposed to have been abandoned for over a decade. Even the air feels alive. Her pulse spikes as her eyes adjust to the light, and that's when she freezes. Her gaze lands on a man standing at the center of the room. For a moment, her mind scrambles to process it. He's not supposed to be here. Before she can even figure out who or what he is, his expression sharpens. And then, with an almost unreal confidence, he turns the question right back at her. It's as if the game itself asks through him, who's really the intruder here? She freezes, her heart skipping a beat as her brain scrambles to process what's in front of her. Is this some kind of dungeon? She thinks, eyes darting to the man standing before her. Did the devs seriously code in a handsome AI incubus to match Jer taste? It's absurd, but this mansion was supposed to be abandoned. And yet, it's not. Something's off, terribly off. This doesn't feel like any dungeon she's cleared before. The map didn't mark it as one, and the quest data mentioned nothing about living NPCs. Wait, was Jack's information wrong? That shouldn't even be possible. The man scoffs. He wonders aloud who's sneaking into his mansion without making a sound. Ella's thoughts race. No, think harder. This was supposed to be abandoned. The security system was offline. The garden was overgrown. And Jack never gives false intel. That's his whole thing. Trying to sound casual, she introduces herself, saying she's a hunter. But even as she says it, the situation doesn't line up with any known quest type. In the official storyline, sometimes the devs drop hidden details near the end of a main episode. But this feels completely off script. The man tilts his head slightly, eyes glinting in the chandelier's light. If she's truly a hunter, he asks, then why isn't she in the forest hunting monsters instead of trespassing into his home? Her mind screaming. There's no way someone could actually be living here. She blurts out that she's a monster hunter. His lips quirk into a dangerous half-smile. He notes that she's not very discreet for someone who came to kill him, and she's awfully bold for someone who came to steal. Then he asks for her name. Caught off guard, she blurts, "Esper." His expression shifts, slightly amused. He gestures for her to sit, adding in a teasing tone that she might want to set down that ridiculously oversized weapon she's carrying. He studies it curiously, admitting he's never seen a gun quite like it before. Before she can react, a door opens behind them, and a butler steps in, perfectly composed, as if this were the most normal evening ever. He asks if his master had called. He tells the butler they have an unexpected guest and to bring tea. Nothing fancy, just something simple to go with it. Then he adds with a lazy smile, "Oh, and Mylan, don't forget his stimulator when he bring the tea." Her mind blanks. He said this mansion was abandoned, right? She replays Jack's message in her head. Yes. She is pretty sure he said it was. The man's gaze flicks back to her, sharp but calm. "So," he says, as if continuing a casual chat, "House Avondale is supposed to be abandoned? That's a fascinating tale. But, just so she know, this mansion has never been without an owner for the past 150 years. Her composure cracks. She shoots up, her voice rising as she insists that this place was empty. 12 years empty. There were no security systems, and the garden was overgrown beyond recognition. But the man only chuckles softly, replying that the gardener who weeded the lawn yesterday will be very sad to hear that. Her stomach drops. That can't be right. She bolts toward the window, eyes wide, and then freezes in disbelief. What he said is true. The once wild grass is perfectly trimmed, glowing green beneath the moonlight. What the hell? The grass was up to my knees just a moment ago. He watches her, a faint smirk playing on his lips. He says he's sure she knows more about what's happening than he does. Then, in one smooth motion, he points her own weapon right back at her. He says, did she enjoy watching his garden, calling her an intruder, He has a general idea of how to use this gun. It may look unusual, but its usage is fairly obvious. The weapon seems to be based on some advanced magic technology, yet it's strange that no one has announced anything of the sort recently. He wonders aloud if it might have been developed by some underground organization, though that only deepens his curiosity about why she specifically targeted his mansion in the first place. Esper can't help but think how weird it is that he doesn't even recognize that gun. The man, however, seems to be hoping for her cooperation. That weapon isn't rare at all. This gun has been a basic item since the very launch of the game. Even after switching to newer weapons, she had always kept a soft spot for this one. She kept upgrading it, polishing it, and never once sold it. Everyone knew about this gun, from the queen herself to the little kids hanging out in the back alleys. It was known as the hunter's weapon. Someone claiming to know everything about current technology doesn't even know about this gun? That's wild. She turns to him, her brows slightly raised, and asks how old Queen Harriet is now. He replies that Her Majesty celebrated her 37th birthday this year. There had even been a huge, fancy party thrown for the Queen's 50th birthday once, a memory that suddenly clicks something in Esper's mind. During that party, a prince and a princess from a neighboring country had been swept away, vanishing into a dungeon. Her quest back then had been to rescue them and deal with the chaos that followed, which means that event was 13 years ago. So wait, this man standing before her, could he actually be the Earl of Avondale? When she says it, he tells her to call him Lord Earl. That's how everyone addresses him. But to her, reality suddenly shifts. She has traveled 13 years back in time from the Golden Claw game she was just playing. And not only that, she's also 1 year ahead of the disaster in Nine Hodder, the one where dungeons appeared and monsters started overrunning the world. Right now, there are no monsters. The peace feels eerie. She curses under her breath, blaming those Golden Claw developers for this absurd situation. Somehow, she's ended up as the strongest person alive, and now she's stuck here, way before it all began. The Earl studies her with a strange mix of curiosity and disbelief. He asks if she's implying that 13 years from now, this very place turns into a ruin, and that he dies next year. His question hangs in the air, darkly amused. He even asks what causes his death. A heart attack? A traffic accident? Porn addiction? She tries to recall but admits, well, not out loud but in her head, that she doesn't remember much. He supposedly died 12 years ago, so the most likely reason was a monster attack, though honestly, she doubts he'd believe her even if she told him. She glances his way and casually asks if he smokes powderin. It's really bad for him after all. The Earl scoffs, saying she has a great way of making him feel like trash. But she shrugs, half joking, half serious. Since he's going to die anyway, maybe she's the one who's trash. She nudges him, exasperated, asking if they can please stop with the whole trash talk thing. His lips curve into a grin. He teases that she must be implying his speech isn't refined. Then his gaze drops briefly, his tone mocking yet playful, noting that her attire isn't exactly elegant either. Even beggars, he remarks, don't wear pants as tight as hers. She scoffs, smirking back, her confidence unwavering. In a year's time, she says, no one will be saying that. How could anyone outrun monsters in a billowing skirt? Those creatures weren't mere beasts. They were predators, born from the corruption of a world that once prided itself on magic and progress. They turned humans, the proud architects of thriving magical civilizations, into trembling prey. The great towers, the ornate spires, the lavish imports from faraway colonies, none of it mattered anymore when every shadow whispered death. The Earl listens, his expression unreadable. If what she's saying is true, then perhaps she might be right. Still, he points out that she shouldn't be wandering outside dressed like that and armed to the teeth. The guards would arrest her on sight. She's incredibly lucky, he says, that he was the first person she encountered. He has no intention of reporting her to the authorities, or a mental hospital for that matter. He has the eyes of a wise man, calm, assessing, with that piercing gray that seems to look straight through her. And now she gets why people always talk about how beautiful gray eyes are. There's depth in them, quiet power. He asks if she has more of these strange items, these weapons, and offers her a place to stay if she does. She finally gets why they call him eccentric. Trusting her or not, who in their right mind would willingly share a roof with a woman who literally broke into his mansion holding a shotgun? Then again, maybe he's just willing to risk his life in the name of research. She tells him that this isn't an ordinary scythe. It's a magical tool designed for hunting giant monsters. That seems to catch his interest immediately. Unique, he says. All right, he's taking this one. Then his eyes flick toward her bag, sharp and curious. A magic bag. Are those common 10 years from now? She shrugs, giving a vague answer. Something like that. But then a thought strikes her. If she lends him her weapons for research, would he, in return, provide her with food and a place to sleep? His smile curves wider. Elegant, but mischievous. That's the idea. A good trade, indeed. She asks if they need a contract, or maybe just a handshake, to seal the deal. He admits that he's never shaken hands with a lady before, but doesn't see why not. She raises a brow, smirking, claiming she's more than a lady. He rises smoothly, bringing his hand toward her with that gentlemanly grace. As his guest, he says, she should at least pretend to be one. And just at that moment, Mylan arrives, carrying a tray of tea. The young servant stiffens, eyes darting nervously, as if ready to intervene. If the Earl points a weapon at her for the lady's safety, Mylan swears he'll step in immediately. The tension breaks. Esper bursts out laughing, and even the Earl can't suppress a smile. He then instructs Mylan to offer their guest clothing from his mother's wardrobe, since, clearly, she hadn't brought her own. Mylan gives Esper a quick glance and nods, though the girl's eyes silently question whether this is really a good idea. Esper can already tell she's being judged. Mylan quietly reminds her that she can't go outside or even stay here, dressed like that. Even if the Earl allowed it, the staff would never tolerate such an outfit. Well, this is his battle attire, anyway. Battle attire. Then, the door bursts open again as someone else hurries in, announcing that they heard there's a lady guest in the house. The Earl, amused, simply gestures for the head maid to handle things. The woman beams, thrilled at the prospect. Of course, she says warmly. As the housekeeper, she will do her part. Together, they'll ensure Esper happiness. Esper calls her ma'am, and this makes the head maid light up like it's the best thing she's heard in years. Later, once she's dressed elegant fabrics, delicate lace, everything sparkling far too much for her taste, Esper realizes he did this deliberately to tease her, and judging by how radiant the outfit makes her look, he's succeeded. Still, she thinks that, maybe, she should thank him for it later. Now that she's finally alone, she exhales. Her eyes flick toward the faintly glowing screen in the corner of her vision, and her stomach drops. The interface is glitched. The logout button doesn't work. She tries again, and again. Nothing. A knock interrupts her panic. A voice from outside the door asks if there's anything she needs help with. She forces a quick, calm reply. No, nothing at all. But inside, she's spiraling. She can't log off. There's no way to exit the game she's been playing until now. And now, staring at her reflection in the gilded mirror, she wonders, what should she even do going forward? She is being welcomed by the system, its cold, mechanical tone announcing that the prologue begins now. April 7th, 1838. Nyan Hodor thrives in an age of wealth and leisure, a world sustained by magical civilization and colonial trade. Yet on that fateful day, everything changes. When the dungeon vanishes, all that remains in the park are torn clothes, dark stains of blood, and bones with scraps of flesh still clinging to them. 13 years later, that very place is renamed Memorial Park, a site built to mourn and remember the horrifying disaster that took countless lives. Perhaps the Earl of Avondale had been there that day. Though he never struck anyone as the kind to enjoy a casual stroll, it's entirely possible he had happened to be out at that moment. If she had been there too, the casualties might have been cut in half, or maybe even more. But then, a thought hits her like a glitch in the system. Wasn't the Earl meant to die? What if saving him locks her inside this game forever? She still can't get out. The frustration bubbles up. Why the hell did she go back 13 years in Timeway before the game's actual timeline? And worse, why did she end up inside the mansion of a character whose name is literally all she knows about him? She sits in silence, trying to piece it together. Maybe she can find something connected to the Golden Claw, the legendary item, the one rumored to erase dungeon invasions and restore peace to the world. Players always mocked it as a MacGuffin, but right now, it's her only shot. In this world, 13 years earlier, the Golden Claw actually exists. It's impossible to find it during the main storyline, but here, in this version of the past, it might still be out there. So the mission is obvious. She gets a quest that is to find the Golden Claw. Perfect. That's the goal. Find the Golden Claw and go home. Maybe, just maybe, if she tracks down Dr. Sullivan, the famed Magitech scientist she once encountered before, she can uncover the first clue. Later, the mansion comes into view, grand, pristine, and echoing, with the quiet footsteps of servants guiding Esper through its halls. The headmaid explains that this shooting range had been constructed by the previous Earl. Back then, every time the gentlemen gathered and fired their guns, the noise was deafening. Now the entire place is soundproofed. No need for anyone to worry about the racket anymore. Esper's first thought? This looks insanely expensive. The headmaid confirms that suspicion with a small laugh, saying the butler had nearly fainted when he saw the invoice. Still, the Earl went through with it, installing soundproofing on every single outer wall. Esper can tell from the maid's tone that she holds deep pride in her master. The Earl, barely 30, commands wealth and influence beyond imagination. And just like that, Esper realizes this world, though seemingly calm, is anything but ordinary. Every corner hides a clue. Every luxury conceals a mystery, and somewhere within this mansion's polished walls, the path to the Golden Claw might just be waiting for her to uncover it. Although there aren't many magical devices in this mansion, the quality of its magitech easily outshines that of most dukes' estates. Honestly, if she dares to compare, it might even surpass the royal palace itself. The Earl doesn't strike her as particularly kind toward his employees, yet he's clearly not stingy when it comes to spending money. Still, who is Esper to judge him anyway? She barely even knows the man. Later, she tells the headmaid that she'd like to go out for a bit. The woman immediately points out that while there are a few timeless dresses in the ladies' collection, Esper will definitely need something more fashionable if she plans to step outside. The maid's voice turns brisk, excited even, as she begins to list options. How about a blue gown to match her vivid purple eyes? Or perhaps a deep burgundy velvet one? Maybe even something layered with lace. It would suit her beautifully. Esper laughs nervously, explaining that she can't keep relying on the Earl forever. She's got some money of her own, after all, and was really just thinking of buying a simple hat or something small like that. But the headmaid shakes her head in fierce disapproval. The Earl has made it clear. His guest must not skimp on attire. It's only natural, she says, since Esper is a guest of House Avondale. Esper's thoughts drift uneasily. She already feels indebted enough to them, but the maid presses further. The Earl, she insists, is unimaginably wealthy. Even if he were to buy diamonds every day for 1,000,000 years, his fortune wouldn't shrink by a single coin. And besides, if the Earl were to find out that Esper bought clothes using her own money, they'd all be the ones in trouble. She pleads her, for their sake, please just use their lord's money. Esper finally sighs and agrees. Fine, if they insist. At that, the head maid lights up with joy, clapping her hands as she mentions that the seamstress will arrive later today. The energy in her voice reminds Esper of one of her previous in-game quests, the one involving Rosalind Railing. That quest had been chaotic from start to finish. It revolved around capturing an imposter posing as Rosalind Railing, along with the scammer who had manipulated her. The fake Rosalind had even hired Esper herself, requesting that she retrieve an item from the mansion where the real Rosalind was being held captive. Back then, Esper had been the hunter, the one sent to clear the dungeon that appeared during that mission. She can still recall the chaos vividly, the irritation in the imposter's voice, her shrill complaints echoing through the air. "These seamstresses are so snobbish," the woman had snapped. "They have to book them days in advance, and if they don't pay extra, they won't even come when they need them." Esper almost laughs at the memory. Funny how even in this eerily realistic version of the world, some things never change. The same vanity, the same pretentiousness. Only now, she's living it instead of just playing through it. Therefore, calling a seamstress in just one day means, with a little extra payment, they can always make time. The head maid honestly believes that, for someone as gorgeous as her, she deserves nothing less than the most stunning clothes. Besides, seamstresses never take early morning appointments anyway. Most of the noble ladies who would normally book them are still asleep, worn out from last night's ball. They want the latest fashion for her and tell her not to worry about the cost at all. The seamstress, eyeing Esper up and down, thinks to herself that with such a slim figure, literally any style would look perfect on her. Still, if she had to suggest something, she'd say deep blue and dark green silk would totally complement her skin tone. And for a lighter dress, it should definitely be white. It'll look crisp, refreshing, and elegant even with multiple layers. As the seamstress keeps glancing at her, she can't help but admit she's never seen such vivid purple eyes in her entire 30 years of tailoring. Esper looks so breathtaking that she could easily win over every gentleman at a ball without even trying. The seamstress promises the dresses will be ready and delivered by next week. The head maid then asks if it's really possible to finish them that fast. When she discreetly slides a bit more money across the table, the seamstress immediately changes her tune. It's suddenly very possible. Esper knows the head maid wouldn't have spent that kind of money without the Earl's approval, yet it still feels a bit awkward using such a big chunk of his funds on her own clothes. Meanwhile, Mylan is practically yelling at the Earl, saying he's totally going to die if he keeps living like this. The man might not even make it to 30. The Earl just laughs it off, but deep down, maybe he already knows. Maybe he's aware that he's going to die within a year even. And aside from the wild unreality of time travel, there's no reason not to believe Esper's words. If he really does die, his lands will be inherited by some distant relative of a relative, someone he's never even met. The successor who takes over Avondale might not even realize they carry Avondale blood. The best he can do now, he thinks, is prepare letters of recommendation for his employees, at least make sure they're all taken care of when he's gone. Mylan announces that the tea is ready, clearly trying to drag him out of his gloomy thoughts, and honestly, out of his dusty study too. The Earl grins, a little amused at how much effort Mylan always makes just to get him to step outside. Mylan argues that the study is full of book dust, which definitely isn't great for his health. The Earl finally steps out, following the scent of freshly brewed tea. The aroma hits stronger as he walks closer, warm and soothing. When he enters the room, he notices Esper already sitting there. Their eyes meet across the space, his gaze sharp yet strangely soft, hers calm but curious, and for a quiet, fleeting moment, the two of them lock eyes like time itself just slows down. He takes her hand gently and says good morning with a polite smile. He wasn't expecting any visitors, and his curious eyes linger as he asks who she might be. Before she can even answer, Mylan rushes in, blurting out that she's Esper. The Earl blinks once, then twice, before nodding slowly like, oh, he gets it now. Esper can't believe he didn't recognize her. He actually remembered her from before back, when she wore that absolutely hideous outfit. She takes a small sip of tea, a bit flustered, wondering if her old clothes were really that bad. Were they? They weren't that different from what people here normally wear, right? He comments casually that this new dress looks good on her better, actually. She fidgets, hesitating a little before admitting that a seamstress came earlier this morning and that she might have ordered a few dresses for herself, using his money. But she promises to pay him back soon. The Earl raises an eyebrow, asking why she would do that. Didn't the head maid explain everything to her? She nods, saying yes, she did. He sighs and tilts his head with a teasing smirk, So she's not exactly the sharpest tool in the shed, huh? Esper quickly retorts that she probably is, though her tone betrays a hint of embarrassment. He waves off the moment and notes that she provided him with that weapon, and in return, he invited her to stay in his mansion, but only if she's a lady. She sighs, reminding him that she already told him she's not really a lady. The Earl simply shrugs, his tone firm yet light. That's for him to worry about. If she's his guest, then she deserves the status of one. And besides, her weapon has already proven to be pretty useful. Esper leans forward slightly, asking if he wants any other weapons too. He chuckles under his breath and admits that would be nice, though for now, he's having enough fun experimenting with her scythe. Later, as he sits at his desk writing letters, Esper quietly observes him from across the room. She recognizes the letters' official ones, stamped and formal, but she doesn't understand their true meaning. Come to think of it, the Earl of Avondale isn't just a noble, he's also a Magitech engineer. A thought sparks in her mind. Maybe, should she ask him about Dr. Sullivan? She calls out softly, breaking the quiet, asking if, by any chance, he happens to know a Dr. Sullivan. She's trying to find him, because there's something she really needs to ask. But she's not even sure if he still lives in the same place, 13 years from now. Earl suggests that she should go ask the butler about it, but she shakes her head, explaining that she thought he might know instead, since he's also a Magitech engineer. When he questions what exactly she wants to ask, she lets out a nervous laugh and admits that, actually, she's searching for an item, something related to returning to the future. A Magitech engineer might know about that kind of thing. She remembers, he's about 60 years old, maybe? His first name's Albert? No, wait, Alberto? Whatever, never mind the name. Whatever. Earl frowns slightly and tells her that he's never heard of such a man. Esper blinks in disbelief. Was Dr. Sullivan not famous back then? 13 years later, he'd become Nyanhudur's top Magitech engineer. Or maybe, at this point in time, he was still just a graduate student. Earl then remarks that this supposed engineer is probably not worth her time. He scoffs at her, half amused, half condescending, saying that she claims to want to discuss Magitech, yet she's seeking out such an insignificant person. His tone drips with confidence, as he adds that surely this man has no notable research, since he's never even heard of his name before. And to make it worse, she's staying at House Avondale, yet wants to consult some random unremarkable man about Magitech? The irony isn't lost on him. Esper flushes a deep pink, trying to defend herself. She blurts out that, actually in 13 years, that man becomes really famous. Like, really famous. The most renowned Magitech engineer in all of Nyanhudur. Earl tilts his head, curious now. He asks who she thinks holds that title currently. And then he answers his own question, matter-of-factly. It's the Earl of Avondale himself, Viscount of Glayley, chair professor at Osden Royal Magitech University, and recipient of the Order of the Rusty Sword. Earl Cedar Clavon, creator of countless Magitech technologies, from automatons to telecommunication systems. Her jaw nearly drops. Wait, Dr. Earl Cedar Clavon and the Earl of Avondale are the same person? That realization hits like lightning. Moreover, the fact that he received the Order of the Rusty Sword, one of the most prestigious honors awarded to only one person per decade, makes it impossible for her to believe she somehow hadn't realized who he was. And then, as if to ground the moment in something heavier, Earl murmurs that the reality of his death is finally sinking in. If he had still been alive at that time, no one would have dared to call anyone else the most brilliant Magitech engineer in his presence. The air between them feels different now, heavy. She actually thought Dr. Earl Cedar Clavon had died of old age, but he scoffs at that, saying it's an impolite assumption to make. She blinks in embarrassment and asks about his age. 25, he says simply. 25. She nearly chokes on her tea. When did he even get his doctorate? He replies 5 years ago. Since then, he's always been the top Magitech engineer. She's stunned. She used to think Dr. Earl Clavon was some old man with a white beard and shaky hands. But no, he's only 25. It's like she's accidentally jumped through time and landed smack in the middle of Isaac Newton's era. And to think she had actually suggested finding another Magitech engineer right in front of him. Girl, what was she even thinking? She must be completely out of her mind. Completely out. Now she's low-key panicking. What if he kicks her out of the mansion over this? She really needs to find the Golden Claw, and fast. Earl taps the table, his expression sharp yet curious, and asks what exactly this item she's searching for is. She takes a sip of tea to steady herself, and begins explaining. Starting 1 year from now, dungeons will start appearing, unpredictably, chaotically, anywhere. Royal palaces, back alleys, empty fields, no place will be safe. Within their territories, monsters emerge and slaughter people mercilessly. These dungeons only vanish when every person trapped inside is dead, and the monsters have nothing left to consume, or when the dungeon itself is completely destroyed. She explains that she heard the item she's looking for. The golden claw can completely eradicate these dungeons. Earl's brows lift, intrigued, but also amused. He asks how exactly this item manages to erase dungeons from existence. She shrugs awkwardly. Honestly, she doesn't know either. Maybe the game developers of the Golden Claw will reveal that when they decide to shut down the servers once it's no longer profitable. She wonders to herself, a wave of unease crossing her face. Wait, could that be happening right now? Earl isn't sure what's going on in her head, but he seriously considers her words, asking how dungeons could possibly vanish just because of one item. She points out that, if the Golden Claw works, wouldn't the dungeons just stop appearing altogether? But then he raises a chilling counterpoint. What if the opposite happened? What if the entire world turned into one massive dungeon? She shakes it away immediately. That's impossible. The Golden Claw is a legendary artifact. All hunters are searching for it. It's supposed to be salvation, not destruction. But he argues logically, she has no proof. It's all speculation. She bites her lip, frustrated but unable to deny it. Anyway, she insists she needs to find it if she ever wants to return to her own time. That's what puzzles him most. Why does she even think she can go back by finding that item? What's the connection between the dungeons disappearing and her returning to the future? She freezes, realizing she can't possibly explain without revealing that this entire world is just a video game. But how could she say that? How could she tell him that the world he lives in was literally designed for someone's entertainment? She quickly covers up, claiming that there are ways hunters can access such hidden information. Earl gives a half smirk, clearly unconvinced. He says that if she can't tell him the truth, she doesn't need to bother trying. He doesn't know much about dungeons from a Magitech perspective either. She bursts out suddenly, insisting she can tell him everything she knows. But then, almost immediately she falters, because she actually knows nothing about Magitech engineering. Still, she argues, scholars and detectives share something in common. Both chase after truth. So maybe investigating his Magitech research could uncover something far more fascinating, something about the world's underlying essence. He seems intrigued now, eyes glinting with thought. He even suspects that it could somehow connect to his field of expertise. Then, leaning slightly forward, he extends his hand toward her and asks what their next move should be. Naturally, she says, their next step is to gather information, his private library, the public archives, and maybe even rumors or local legends. And then, as if it suddenly clicks, she realizes she should also look for Jack's information and Jack's notes. She is seen taking notes about dungeon monsters, rumors, and legends. But poor Earl is too busy thinking, where on earth are all these dirty notes in his sitting room coming from? Actually, right. He can't even see the game window. So maybe this plan of her might actually work. She takes out a book and points to it, saying it's a work by Alfred Sullivan. She's not sure if he'll like it though. She even mentions that she dusted it off herself, asking if that's all right. The Earl, a little worried, insists that his staff will handle the cleaning. He starts reading the book and remarks that Dr. Sullivan isn't an uninteresting fellow. It's useful, actually. He thinks he'll get a rough idea of what a dungeon is once he finishes reading it. Then, noticing the scattered papers, he asks her about them. She explains that they're actually rumors she purchased from a back alley boy named Jack. Most of the rumors don't have much significance, but every once in a while they contain real information stories that can't be told officially, circulating underground and in back alleys. They're just random notes without much data, but she thought she'd check just in case. There were quite a few quests that mentioned something called the Golden Claw. She explains that quests are basically tasks given to hunters. For him, she uses a lot of unique terms for a job that's only about 12 years old. She adds that it's a pretty closed community. They have their own jargon. Not just anyone can become a hunter, after all. The Earl, still curious, notices the monster skin wrapped around her scythe and asks if it's the same kind as the one he's seen before. Lena tries to explain that yes, it's actually ogre skin. Seeing her this close, he instinctively steps back, while Esper internally sighs that even though this book is supposed to be a limited edition, filled with detailed information, it still won't be enough for him. After all, how can she ever match the endless expectations of a genius? She'll have to be self-sufficient. Anyway, Earl reassures her that he'll read the book. He glances at her, clearly not planning to keep it, but she tells him to just keep it. She won't read it anyway. He's taken aback, asking if she's actually serious about giving away something with such valuable information. Well, yeah, it'll probably be more useful to him than to her. Seeing that, he agrees to take it, while Esper sighs again, noting how ridiculously excited he seems over it. She goes back to her notes and, using her powers, cleans up the papers scattered around. The servants who witness her doing this get super hyped and start asking if she could show them the kind of magic she just used. With no other option, she starts showing them, and they get way too excited. Suddenly, the Earl walks back into the room, completely dumbfounded at the sight before him. He questions her about whether she can actually use magic. She tilts her head and remarks that he can too. After all, he's a magic mechanical engineer. He admits that he does use magic, but hers seems different. He takes her hand, his gaze turning analytical, and she doesn't quite understand what he's looking for. He leans closer and whispers, almost cautiously, asking if by any chance she has mana stones. She blinks, confused, and says no. She just used magic when opening her bag yesterday. He shouts that this is not the same kind of magic, and he sighs softly before apologizing to her, asking if she'll come with him to the lab. The butler, overhearing, reminds him about the tea party, but the Earl waves it off and says he's not going, telling the butler to return to his duties. Then he smiles at Esper, asking if she's willing to go with him. She replies, sure, saying she just needs to finish up her work first. He waits patiently while she cleans up the remaining papers, her powers neatly folding the mess away. As they walk together toward the lab, she can't help but wonder what this is all about. The moment they enter, she notes how massive the place is. The sheer size of it still manages to astonish her. The lab itself is incredible, filled with gleaming brass instruments, gears, mana conduits, and strange glowing crystals humming softly in their sockets. He brings out a mat and asks her to stand on it. She hesitates, asking if he's not going to do anything weird to her, right? Like dissection or something? The Earl chuckles, assuring her that he would never dissect her. There's much more to learn from her while she's alive. His tone turns smooth and reassuring as he smiles, telling her that it won't hurt at all, that it'll be quick, so she should just come stand there. His voice is low and soothing, like a gentleman offering a rose to his beloved, subtly enchanting. In a different situation, her heart might have actually skipped a beat, but right now, he feels more like an abductor than a romantic lead. She doubts his words, wondering how it could not hurt if he's planning to flow magic power into her just to measure it. He promises it'll be painless and that he'll only release a little bit of mana. She scoffs, asking if he's ever done this to a person before. He admits, no, people don't usually have magic powers. Of course, he would have tried it if he ever had the chance. He even admits that he doesn't really like having to do this test on her either. She glares at him in disbelief. Did he just call her a test subject? But the Earl reasons that they're colleagues, searching for the same thing, aren't they? She's not convinced, not one bit. He seems to understand her distrust though, saying he knows she probably doesn't find him very trustworthy. Then, he uses that charming tone again, almost bribing her with his words, asking if she could at least give him a single drop of blood. She sighs, reluctantly agreeing, but only one drop. To make sure he keeps things hygienic, she warns him, and he assures her he will. But the moment he takes the blood, she shouts at him that he's a liar. It wasn't supposed to be more than a drop. He insists that this one really isn't serious, asking her to wait a moment. Then she notices it's her scythe he's holding. He asks her to give it a swing. She protests that this isn't something they can just swing around indoors. Does he know that? He laughs lightly and says that he only wants her to show him the weapon's transformation. With a sigh, she does as asked. The scythe flares with dark light, humming with mana as it shifts forms, and the Earl's eyes widen in pure disbelief. He can't believe what he's seeing. She's a real mage. He tells her he's looking forward to working with her. She steps back cautiously, eyeing him suspiciously, asking if he's not planning to dissect her now. She warns that she won't give him any more of her blood, or agree to any experiments on her. He laughs softly, assuring her that he didn't mean it that way. He's talking about what she's searching for. He wants to help her find the golden claw. She makes it absolutely clear again that she's not giving him any more blood. He nods, saying sure he won't take any, but if she ever offers it herself, he'll gladly accept. He grins playfully at that, watching her glare. The Earl notes to himself that unlike Magitech engineers, she can freely use magic with the mana flowing naturally through her body, without the aid of mana stones. That makes her a true mage, and as he looks at her, he thinks, she said he only has 1 year left. He's got a feeling that the upcoming year will be way more exciting than the previous 25. Later, we see Esper at the shooting range, her focus razor sharp as she fires her gun with mechanical precision. Her mind drifts between shots, tracing back through fragments of memory. Was it 2 years ago? She wonders. Back then, she'd been so buried in work that she couldn't even log into Golden Claw for several months. The grind, the rank resets it, all slipped through her fingers. But now, she refuses to lose her edge again. Practicing like this is the only way she can keep herself sharp. Her ranking may have dropped, sure, but what really stunned her was how long it took, 3 whole months to get her combat instincts back. Every reload, every dodge, every pull of the trigger had to be relearned from scratch. Across the room, the Earl watches her with quiet interest, leaning against a railing as the sound of gunfire fades. He asks what happens if she fires her weapon at maximum power. Esper pauses, smirking faintly. She's never actually tried it outside of a dungeon. The only time she pushed it that far was during that one mission in the Cathedral of Nyanhatter. She remembers the chaos vividly. The explosion, the light, the storm of debris. The entire place had blown apart, taking every monster inside with it. The Earl hums thoughtfully, asking how long the weapon can handle that much power before breaking down. Esper laughs under her breath, answering with dry humor. Not long at all. They just go poof. He chuckles, clearly impressed, and remarks that it's still an incredible piece of craftsmanship. Esper flexes the rifle's barrel with pride. It is the best one she owns, even if adjusting the intensity can be a total pain sometimes. But then, the Earl cuts in smoothly, noting that there are only 3 magic filters installed. He says it's possible to upgrade them. And if he says it's possible, well, then it's really possible. Esper's lips twitch into a small grin. Still, he adds that it won't be happening today. After all, they have somewhere to go together. As Esper gets ready, Anne, the maid assisting her, looks her over with a bright smile. She says Esper could easily walk straight into a royal ball right now. She looks that stunning. The fabric drapes perfectly, the faint shimmer of enchantment woven into the dress catching every bit of light. Esper flushes a little, mumbling that she appreciates the compliment, but she honestly doesn't think she looks that amazing. They're only heading out to visit a magic shop the Earl frequents, hoping to find a clue related to the Golden Claw. Still, it's kind of embarrassing how everyone seems to see this outing as a date. Earl appears just then, his presence effortlessly commanding. The way he looks at her could probably silence an entire ballroom. He comments that they'll definitely draw attention walking together like this. Esper sighs. It's still better than wearing her usual battle outfit. He immediately grimaces, teasing her not to even think about wearing that outfit while riding in his carriage. If only he knew. Every single piece of that ridiculous outfit was upgraded to the max protection, agility, stealth buffs top-tier stats, disguised as a casual jacket. If he saw the specs, he'd never complain again. Outside, Mylin and the other maids watch from the mansion steps as the two head out. The head maid sighs dramatically, clasping her hands like she's watching a love story unfold. Esper rolls her eyes at the attention, but can't help smiling faintly. Inside the carriage, the city unfolds before them. Esper leans toward the window, eyes wide. She didn't realize there were so many tall buildings here. The skyline feels almost foreign to her. The Earl glances her way, asking if the future is really that different from what she remembers. She nods slightly, pointing out a particular spot. That used to be where the Hunters Association stood. The Earl raises a brow, saying that place is now a city-owned building. He guesses Nyanhatter must have been in serious financial trouble to sell such valuable property. As they continue through the street, Esper notices something gleaming in a nearby shop window. A humanoid figure of polished brass and steel. A robot? She murmurs. Earl puts admitting that he was the one who made it when he was 15. One of those automatons, he explains, is worth as much as an entire building on this street. But despite the price, they're mostly decorative, barely functional, just there for display. The crowd's murmur follows them as they climb out of the carriage together, and the Earl leans close enough to whisper that she should just pretend she didn't hear it. He still hasn't decided how to introduce her. People simply cannot believe he's taking a lady into such a sketchy part of town. The Earl's reputation for oddness makes it worse. The district is not a place for a lady. If the plan is to introduce her to society later, the timing will expose whether she's genuinely who she claims to be. They drift into a shop, and Esper's eyes snag on a coil of leather. Isn't that troll leather? Why is monster leather being sold openly a whole year before the outbreak? Her composure snaps into full detective mode. She masks her alarm and pretends nothing's wrong. Yet the question burns. Could there be a connection between these monster byproducts and the Golden Claw? Whatever the answer, she needs to investigate. This is the Altar District, the biggest slum in Nihon Hotter, a rough, chaotic neighborhood she doesn't usually visit. A little boy approaches and asks for a penny. She counters. What can he give her in return? He grins and immediately ups the ante. If she gives him 100 taros, he will guide her out safely. He names himself Jack, and when she says she has a question for him, he sighs that if she's not going to pay, he'll have to take something instead. He calls dibs on the sleeve decorations. His cronies move to grab her, but before hands can land, she already vanishes from their sight. The thugs freeze, bewildered. She'd been unarmed a moment ago. A thought skates through her. Should she beat these guys up and drag out where the information broker hides? 10 per group, 20 heads total. Somebody has to know. She lands a single, precise strike that floors them. They yell that she's got magic. She tells Jack he has a sharp eye. He panics slightly at her tone when she says she has a question just for him, then steadies when she presses that he knows the alleys better than anyone. When she insists he must therefore know where the information broker is, Jack hedges, asking why she wants to know. She leans in, but before she can squeeze details from him, other bandits converge on the scene. Annoyed, she sighs and tells Jack they'll meet again. If he wants to make it home safely, he'd better be careful with his words. Then she leaves, mind already racing through Leeds monster leather, the Golden Claw, and an information broker somewhere in the labyrinth of the Altar District. This whole thing is a mess, and she intends to dig until something concrete surfaces. 2 hours ago, the shopkeeper greets the Earl with a knowing smile, saying it's already been a month since his last visit. He wonders aloud how the Earl's research is going. And today, apparently, he's brought a young lady with him. Earl tells him that the lady seems to be quite interested in magic. The shopkeeper nods enthusiastically, confirming that yes, she introduced herself to him as Miss Hunter. She must have great potential, he says. She looks like a budding scholar. The Earl only snorts at that, his tone dry and amused, muttering that she's far from a mere bud. He changes the topic and asks if the shopkeeper has anything new in stock. The man hesitates, then admits that, well, for someone of the Earl's noble status, not really. The Earl leans slightly closer, his voice dropping lower, asking how about something not suited for someone like him. He knows how shops like this run. No one survives on scholars, nobles, or hunters alone. To keep business thriving, one must also deal with the criminal underworld, and the truly valuable, dangerous things are always hidden somewhere deep, in the most secluded corners of the warehouse, far from public eyes. He tilts his head. He suppose he won't show him the warehouse, will he? The shopkeeper instantly grows flustered, stammering that he can't possibly do that. But the Earl lowers his voice, his tone almost conspiratorial. He admits that he's looking for something he can't exactly find through legal means. The shopkeeper gulps nervously, asking what exactly he's after. The Earl's eyes sharpen as he replies, a claw. The shopkeeper frowns, asking if he's talking about a beast's claw. The Earl shakes his head slowly, lost in thought. She had said she was searching for the Golden Claw, so maybe he should start by looking for claws in general, though honestly, it might not even be a literal claw. He needs to verify whether this shop holds anything close to what he's searching for, so he tells the man to show him everything he's got. The shopkeeper hesitates, protesting that, as the Earl surely knows, that part of the warehouse is completely off limits. Even his most trusted assistant isn't allowed there. Earl's expression hardens. He insists it's crucial for him to find this item. The shopkeeper starts to waver under his stare, fidgeting, but still doesn't move. The Earl presses further, reminding him, has he ever asked to be shown around the warehouse before? That's when Esper steps in. Fast forward, after she leaves for something to handle, Earl glances at it but doesn't see anything unusual about it. Nothing looks different from any other piece of leather. The shopkeeper quickly jumps in, acting offended, his voice rising with fake indignation. He asks Earl if he doesn't trust his shop's goods. Has he ever deceived him before? Why is the Earl suddenly doubting him now? Earl sighs softly and admits that, no, he hasn't. But still, something feels off. He places his hand over the leather roll, activating the magic sensor embedded in his ring. Immediately, a faint vibration hums through it, different from the dull resonance of ordinary leather. His eyes narrow slightly. This leather looks just like any other, he murmurs under his breath. But the vibration, it's different. This is definitely something new. Its magical properties are entirely different.